In any agency, regardless of size, there will come a day when a call comes into the 911 lines that is so intense, so chaotic, and so challenging that the operators who work the phone lines may question if they have the ability to handle it. This could be a plane crash, an active shooter, or a fire. In all of these instances, the truth of the matter is this: trust your training. This is LifeLine. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of LifeLine 911 with your host, Erica.
Hello.
I'm your co-host, Gary, and today we are discussing preparing yourself for the worst calls and trusting in yourself that you know how to handle them. So, we were kind of talking before the show, and there's a lot of things going on in this world right now that are conducive to difficult calls kind of cropping up that are really intense, and people that are in the profession may not feel like they have the capability to handle all of these calls correctly.
Yeah.
So what can what can the average 911 operator or police dispatcher do to feel better about that? Or is there anything?
I it's funny that this, like everything, most episodes or like most of them, this episode was born out of something that has happened recently. And I imagine, you don't even have to really give it a name, but we'll just pull one out and just say active shooter. Um and that's one of the ones I think everybody thinks about. And so in at our center and talking it over with leadership and other supervisors and whatnot, we came down to one conclusion, and that is basically trust your training. I don't know if there's anything that you can feel better about, how to make yourself feel better or feel more ready, other than sticking with your basics.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the basics every day, all day. You're not going to feel better about it. You may feel more ready if you remind yourself that you have the training and trust that.
And we had on an earlier episode Tatiana to discuss sort of critical incident
Mm-hmm.
calls,
Mm-hmm.
and this is sort of along in that vein, meaning that when those kinds of difficult calls come in, there won't be able to be a policy in place to handle every incident that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the what you can do and what is best for you to do as an operator or dispatcher is to follow your agency's policies and procedures,
Mm-hmm.
um, because that will help you get through the mass chaos. And I always tell my call takers, my dispatchers, people that I've trained, that first 30 seconds of a call is the hardest part.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get past that, it gets easier and easier as things go on, because you start and there's this just mass cloud of chaos and confusion, and you've got to take that and move it to you've got to label it, you got to tag it, you got to place it in the computer, put it on a map, whatever you have to do,
Mm-hmm.
and then get the resources going there that need to be there. And it's that first 30 seconds to a minute that determines if that call is going to be successful or not. And those those fundamentals that you're going to use on that call are all going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the call at? What kind of resources do we need? How
Mm-hmm.
much of those resources do we need?
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's a minor fender bender or the World Trade Center, all of these things are going to be the same fundamental process, just varying in scope.
Agreed. And incredibly well said with the varying in scope, because that's all this boils down to being. And by saying all this boils down to is not diminishing the the lives impacted, not at all. But for you, the 911 professional, the first responder, the first one on scene, you get a call and somebody says it's an active shooter. Okay. Do you proceed as if it's an active shooter, or do you proceed as if it's either A, someone with a gun, and whatever your priority, whatever your agency's SOP and call title is for that, that's where you start, right? Somebody's got a gun, and then you go from there. But it goes in the first several seconds of the call is where and who and what are they doing? Do they have any weapons? What kind of weapon is it? It's a gun? Okay, you're notating that. And then you're going on to your descriptions. And of course, at some point, it depends on how your agency's set up. If you are the EMS triage person, then you have to balance those two. But in our agency, it I need the where, I need the who, I need the what. If anybody's injured, I shunt that call off to somebody else, but I'm still listening and I'm still gathering information. I'm still following all of my basics and fundamentals, all of the training that I got from day
Hmm.
one up to now. It doesn't change for us.
Right. Because you're going to still need that same information and start resources dependent on what's going on. And you don't think about it very often on the calls that are more routine. So, take, for example, a collision. If it's a minor fender bender, you might not need fire or EMS or maybe even the police.
Mhm.
If it's a crash with two vehicles, they're stalled in the lane, you might need the police and a tow truck. If somebody's injured, maybe throw on the fire department or EMS. But the situation escalates determining what type of resources are coming in. So the same is true for any major call, a plane crash.
Mhm.
What are you going to need? You're going to need cops there to do what? To block intersections. You're going to need medical there to do what? To help the injured.
Mhm.
Fire there to do what? Stop the fire.
Mhm.
It all follows a logical process. It's just the scope of that. And I think sometimes the scope can scare people or make
Yes.
them feel like I'm not prepared for that.
Yes.
When you have all the tools you need. You
Mhm.
know how to do this job.
Mhm.
And if you screw something up, keep going. Keep going and fix it, get the information later. Just keep doing things. You
Yeah.
you know how to do this.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that Tatiana and I, when we were in class together and we were teaching the critical incidents, tactical, tactical dispatch, she was talking about the several car pileup and how, it's a what was a hazmat, you know,
Mhm.
a vehicle ran into a tanker of some sort, and then of course you got all the placards, and then it's a big plume of smoke and all the things. And I'll never forget it. One day she said, "What did this call start out as?" And everybody was like, a crash?" Yes, it started out as a crash. And you go from there. You still got to know where and how many vehicles involved. Once we know that, is anyone injured? Okay. Then we're going from there. Oh, by the way, one of them's an 18 wheeler. Okay. It's got these weird, funny looking symbols on it. All righty then. But if we've got some injuries, then now we're going to find out, okay, this is a big tanker of some sort. So some hazmat. But guess who's most likely going to deal with the hazmat component there? Probably the fire department.
Yeah.
Or if you don't think of it because you've got 10 different things going on, EMS may think of it. Because in the course of all of these questions being asked by all of these different partners working on the same call, it's going to get asked. I'm not suggesting that you don't ask, but I'm saying don't put more pressure on yourself than what is absolutely necessary. Your leadership has given you a training plan. You went through the training, you were released from said training. There's a reason for that. We gave you the basics and fundamentals of it.
Mm.
Follow those. And you will almost, I can't imagine you going wrong if you get the who, what, when, where, how many, who has the gun, sticks, bats, whatever that looks like. Oh, and if somebody's, injured, don't forget the ambulance.
Common sense. uh, Especially for people that have been in the profession.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's injured, get an ambulance. Now, there's really two main types of these really critical calls, and the first type is the kind that starts off as maybe an 18 wheeler is stalled on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I feel as a call taker, as a dispatcher, I feel comfortable with that. I deal with that call every day. I know how that's going to go. Then it moves on. Oh, Looks like there's a fire under the hood. Okay, well, I escalate. I still feel comfortable with that.
Hmm.
It moves on. There's smoke appears in the trailer. I feel confident with that. Moving on. It explodes. That's unusual, but I feel prepped for it. So
Hmm.
I feel confident dealing with that. The other side of the coin, I think, is what really makes people nervous. This is where you're tooling along. Say it's bar, it's bar close. Bars are all closing down. And then suddenly you get a call. There's somebody inside of this bar opening fire with an assault rifle. 3 people are down. Crap. There's no call. I got to start from scratch. Get
Hmm.
all of this together. You get a dump of adrenaline right then because
Yes.
people's lives are either already lost or being lost in the process.
No.
Some of those people you can't help. Some of them you can, and you don't want to screw that up.
Sure.
So, so how do you kind of approach that kind of situation, which I think is for many people in the industry one of the nightmare
Yeah, I was
situations.
going to say that is the nightmare scenario. And you wonder, am I getting enough information? Let's boil it down to the studs. What is it first? To call for service. What is it next? It depends. Once we find out where, somebody's going to be screaming bloody murder. They're shooting. Who's shooting? How many people are shooting? Then we
Mm-hmm.
start breaking down, is anybody injured? Are they still shooting? Sure, they're good. You're going to find that out. And if your agency is one that requires that the minute you hear the possibility of injuries that you have to transfer that call, continue to do what you know to do. Update, update, update. And at the first opportunity, you get back in there and you ask the rest of your questions. But the questions don't stop and they don't change. They're not different. Active shooter just means, or active attacker means someone is actively attempting to or has already taken lives and is still in the process of doing so or trying to do so. Now, your definition of that might be a little different depending on your agency, but the bones of it, it's the same. Somebody's actively trying to hurt other people. What do we still need? Male, female, need that. Black, white, Hispanic, or Asian, need that, right? How tall? What are they wearing? Where are they right now?
Mm-hmm.
How many people are down? You need that, and then you're constantly gathering information so that you can do what? Send the appropriate resources. The rest is up to the field units because
Yeah.
you can't set your headset down and go out there and do any more than you have already done.
Unless you're Halle Berry.
Don't you wrong for that. You know you was wrong for that.
But yeah, I mean, it's getting the call started. It's everything in the call process is something you know how to do.
Mhm.
There's not anything that's going to be unique to the call in the sense of going to be something out of a process that you've done, hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of times,
Mhm.
depending on how long you've been a telecommunicator. And I think a lot of times when people get, especially, it's really mainly those calls that start from nothing and just explode, and
Yeah,
that's when the panic sets in.
sure.
That's when concern sets in, doubt, and you can overcome all that
Mhm.
because you those emergency telecommunicators listening to this show, you know what to do.
Yeah.
Get a call going, get aid sent in that direction.
Mhm.
And if it's a big call, there's probably going to be multiple people calling in. If you're in a center that has uh, you know 5, 10, 15, 20 call takers on duty, a lot of people are going to be throwing in on that call, adding whatever their complainants are telling them.
Mhm.
But keep getting the information that you can, and it's all
Oh no.
about not freezing because you're going to feel this enormous weight of I've got to get everything done immediately.
Mhm.
That's impossible.
Right.
Do what you can do it accurately
Yes.
and do it as quickly as you can. And you may have issues with the complainant. Maybe they're not maybe they're too scared to respond. Maybe they're injured themselves. Maybe they're confused.
Hmm.
There's so many variables that could come into place, but you start your work like you know how to do
So
and
good.
work the problem.
That's so good. And it's funny. I remember a when I was working in Denver, there was a an officer needs assistance, and they called it a help call. That's what they had. And I remember as soon as I realized my 911 caller was actually an officer. And I don't remember he was out of jurisdiction or not because, Denver, like many big cities, has all these little tiny jurisdictions around them. And I don't remember where he was from. I feel like he wasn't a Denver officer because that would have changed not very much, but it would have changed some things. Uh,
Hmm.
because it would be unusual for an on duty officer to be calling 911 and not screaming bloody murder into the radio. But I'll never
Right.
forget, I had him on the phone and my brain seized. I was still doing what I was supposed to do, but I was just like, I got to get everything. I have to do everything. I have to fix it. I have to make sure he's okay. All the things. And I'll never forget the supervisor on duty walked up right behind me and he stood just out of my field of vision.
Peripheral.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and he said, "You know what you have. Keep typing. Remember, slow and steady, slow and steady." And I was like, "But I gotta hurry." He was like, "Slow down. Type what you need to type. Hit enter. Type what you need to type. Hit enter." And I was like, after it was over, I stopped. I had to, I stepped back and I've never forgot that. Why? Because it was the right information. It was the right advice. And I know this may go against everything that we've ever been taught about speed and all the things. But the truth is, when you get that call that you now know is the mushroom call, the best thing you can do, take a breath. It takes 2 seconds. And most likely, it's the difference between your brain seizing up and staying seized up and you taking a moment to go, I already know where, I already know what. And now I just have to fill in the blanks. Like Gary
Hmm.
said, you already know to do that. You already know how to do that. You've already been doing it. And if you are brand new listening to this and you've only been out of training 2 whole days, guess what you've been doing all the way up to this point? That.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that kind of goes along with a brief anecdote is often attributed to Abraham Lincoln, called "Sharpening Your Axe."
Mm,
In the story, there's two
mm-hmm,
lumberjacks that go out and they have a pile of wood to cut. And so the first guy gets out there and he's just hacking away at the wood, working as hard as he can, just sweating profusely, works from sun up to sundown, cuts his pile of wood. He's exhausted. He did the job. Good for you, buddy. Second lumberjack goes out there. He sits down, gets a stone, sharpens his axe, starts cutting. Then when his axe gets dull, he sits down, sharpens again, starts cutting. He finishes much earlier, much less stress, also gets the job done.
mm-hmm.
And I kind of equate that, um, meaning that keep yourself ready to go. And your uh, discussion about take a breath, give yourself a second or two, organize your thoughts, and then go.
Mm-hmm.
Because getting started on the right foot makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And you and I were talking before we began about the importance of studying your SOPs, studying your your guidelines, whatever your agency calls them. A little bit of training every day goes a long, long way. Even if all it, so telling yourself, okay, what is an active attacker? It's just a crime in progress against another person or persons, right? When we break that down, might not be the worst idea ever to role play with your peers or role play with your supervisors if they will, if they have the ability to take that time. What about your training team? Is there something that they can give you? Even if it's, I know you, Gary and I telling you that it's the same work that you've been doing may not be enough. Ask for what you need. We at
Hmm.
our agency, on the heels of an active attacker that happened just a couple of weeks ago, have taken to having just very, very small group conversations. And when I say small group, I'm talking two, because that's all our staffing would allow. When we could, we did three or four or more, right? But the gist of it was we got a couple of three call takers together in a room and said, hey guys, we're really not going to share anything with you that you do not already know. But on the heels of this thing that just happened, we know a lot of you are rattled. So let's talk about it. And by the time the conversation was over, guess what? All we did was go over the basics and fundamentals, and then how a call, like Gary says, can escalate and the scope changes, but the bones of the job does not change. Most of them were like, we knew that, we just needed to hear it. A couple, newest of the new, were like, oh, you're right, I hadn't thought of it that way. Because when you see these horrible things on the news, you think, I need to be ready. I need to be able to be, I have to be the one that gets that last piece of information and leaves nothing out. And at the end of the day, ask your questions, enter the information, and go on to the next quote.
Hmm. Yeah, I think also, especially again for the incidents that just pop out of nowhere, already very extreme. Sometimes people doubt themselves. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, is this the moment? Is this go time? Are we doing this? Is this the right thing to do? So, for
That's
example,
good.
today uh, we had a dispatcher who's a very good dispatcher. Um, there was a knife attack on a bus, and three people were injured. And the officer went out there, and uh, the dispatcher keys up. Unit, what is your status? And the unit replies, uh, bus cuffs. And the dispatcher's like, I didn't catch that. What'd you say? Bus. And what's your status? I couldn't hear you. And did not, well, in our industry, did not drop what's called an officer needs assistance, meaning the fecal matter has hit the whirly blades and it's time to send everybody.
Send the cavalry.
But yeah, but I could hear it in that dispatcher's voice that they wanted to. They were just right at the edge. Um, and so I asked them afterwards. I was like, why didn't you drop that as an officer needs assistance or a help call or whatever your industry calls them?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they were like, well, I wasn't quite sure if that's where it was at. There was already other officers en route, running lights and sirens, and so I told them, I was like, that's, if you're questioning yourself, do it. Because
Yes.
the worst thing that'll happen is the officer will key up, maybe annoyed, and say, I'm fine, I don't need the cavalry coming. But it might not, it could go in a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what that is a lot is doubting that the moment has arrived,
So good.
as they say.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of scary, because it's like, oh, it's go time. We got to do this. And you can, I don't want to say lull yourself into comfort by thinking, oh, it's not really that bad, it's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if everything is moved in that direction, and your training, your policies, and your procedures are telling you to that, yes, this is an active shooter, yes, this is an officer needs assistance, yes, this is an explosion at some big venue, don't be afraid to go ahead and perform your duties as you've been trained,
Mm-hmm.
because that too will make things less successful.
Agreed. And something that came up in one of our most recent, most recent, that's bad, but most recent incidents is, as all these people are calling in, we started to see, my caller reporting the same, my caller reporting the same, my caller saying the same thing. I can't tell you not to go with what your agency tells you to do, but experience says that might not be the best way to handle the caller calling in. I don't care if they are telling you, I saw this guy do X, Y, and Z. Well, what did the guy you saw look like? Because typically what happens is you have all these people calling in and they all have a little different description. Or you might see a trend start to emerge. We have more people saying it was a white guy, 6 foot with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a blue shirt. You might have a little off over here and a little off over there, but everyone's input is important. And I know you have lots and lots of calls in the queue, and there's only so many of you answering the phones. But maybe get with your leadership and on how they want you to handle those. But the bigger the event, the more information will be helpful. The more we can get, the better. Because even if we have to sift through a whole bunch of the same thing, we might find ourselves with an emerging picture because we have so much information that we can put together. So, and that's strictly from experience. Again, everything we tell you is with the understanding that you're going to go through your leadership and your SOPs and your agencies, best practices, all the things. But there's a reason why Gary and I have 20 plus and nearly 20 experience doing this. And as supervisors, we will tell you one thing we don't want you to be afraid to do is think.
Absolutely, yeah.
Use your
And
critical, yeah, critical thinking is a thing. Use it.
hmm and kind of going on with your point, the caller report same, caller report same. I have seen in the same apartment complex two separate
You
disturbances,
better say it. Yep.
and um, they may not be the same because
Agreed.
one of them may be a domestic assault, and the other one could be a robbery
Yes,
with a gun.
that happened to me.
And yeah, and so you can never be too sure, and treat every call with the respect it deserves,
That's
and
good.
go through your procedures.
Hmm.
And yes, there of course, as 911 operators, you see, we're holding calls. I got to get to that next call that needs help. That's good that you feel that. I'm glad you feel that.
Hmm.
But each call still needs to be handled correctly.
Yeah, with the dignity, the respect, and the care that it deserves. And here's the thing, if you do that, you will find out if either is the same call or it's not. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
sounds crazy, but it's the truth. But by rushing, you, whether you realize it or not, you make assumptions in your rushing. But if you ask all the W questions, follow your SOPs, your procedures, and best practices, you will find out, oh, you know what? I know it's the same complex, but this is building 8 and this is building 55. They're not going to be the same. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what? Because what are the odds?
Mm-hmm.
Not likely.
Yeah.
But there is a bigger chance of us having two separate incidents than there, close together than there are the same incident so far apart. But the only way we find that out is if we do our due diligence. And like Gary said, treat every call with the dignity, respect, and care that it deserves. And you will find out one way or the other. And guess what? You'll be right.
Mm-hmm. Because even though, on your computer screens, you may see, oh, this apartment complex here, it doesn't look that big. There might be hundreds of people that live there, each
Mm-hmm.
with their own issues that are going on. So
No
it's a
kidding.
lot of options.
Yeah.
And I guess to close, kind of why we were discussing about this, why we were bringing this up, is because there's a lot of concern in this world right now. Maybe terrorist attacks, maybe civil unrest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, these events can happen, and they're the kind of events that stress people out. The like the Boston Marathon bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Oi, when that started, hundreds of calls, explosions.
Yeah.
Um, these things do happen. Our job as emergency telecommunicators is to recognize that they will happen
Yeah.
and to prepare ourselves mentally, emotionally, physically, and with training so that we can respond quickly to them.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to respond.
Well,
Um, a lot of people have fought for uh, emergency telecommunicators to be called first responders over the last several decades.
mhm.
Be worthy of that title.
Nice. Well said. Well
Thank you.
said. I can't add anything to that. Well said.
Well, we hope that you will find something to add to that because we always love hearing from you. You can always reach out to us at our email address, lifeline911podcast@gmail.com, or leave a comment down below. And if you enjoyed the video, which we hope you did, please make sure that you like and subscribe. And if you're an emergency telecommunicator professional, thank you for your service. Keep
Agreed.
doing the hard and important work that you're doing. It's much appreciated.
Agreed.
From all of us at Lifeline 911, I'm Gary,
I'm Erica.
and we will see you next week.
Thank you for watching. If you have any questions about today's topic or topics you'd like to cover in the future, please reach out to us at lifeline911podcast@gmail.com. This has been a production of Lifeline 911, copyright 2026. Until next time, this is Lifeline 911 signing off.